disputed human
Very
stuff.
happy to welcome longtime friend. I don't know why I haven't had him on before. Stephen Green, a.k.a. VodkaPundit. How are you doing, sir?
I am so happy to be here. I can't even tell you. A couple of weeks ago, when you hit me up on in a DM, do you want to be on the podcast? What? Number one, yes. Number two, I can't believe we've never done this before.
I know. It's crazy. We've known each other for years. Now, I feel like I've been blogging in the blogosphere on the information superhighway for quite a while. But you were, I don't know if you were an OG, but you were damn close.
Yeah, I think maybe the very first of the second wave of bloggers when the word was finally starting to gain some traction. To give you an idea of how long ago 2002 was, we're doing this, video, audio, HD. I've got the fancy center stage camera. If I move, it follows me and all that stuff. The original VodkaPundit was hosted on Blogspot.
Mm-hmm.
So is VodkaPundit, blogspot.com. And it was so focused just on text, because hardly anybody had broadband back in those days, that I wanted to have a little headshot on there, which Blogspot couldn't host. So what I had to do was upload a headshot to my Amazon profile and then link that to VodkaPundit at Blogspot.
Yeah, that is crazy. Way too much. Please upload a TIFF file of 12 inches by 14, and maybe we'll be able to post it. Oh, that is just crazy. Yeah, well, recently I've had James Lalick's on and Ed Morrissey on. And a lot of it is just like, wow, remember way back in the old timies? And but still, it's amazing how much it's changed. Now you're blogging furiously at PJ Media. What else do you do there? Because you do all sorts of things.
Well, also just PJTV was so much fun, but also a lot ahead of its time, and it just had too much overhead. We had the big central studio in Los Angeles and all that stuff. So when PJTV went dark in 2016, Bill Whittle, Scott Ott, and I have been doing Trifecta together, just a three-person, talking head show since 2009, and we didn't want to give that up. So we're still doing that under the name Right Angle since 2016. So the three of us have been doing that show for, I think it's 14 years last month.
Wow. Congrats. That's really impressive. Yeah, the only other video thing like that was Blogging Heads with Mickey Kaus and whoever else would be on that week. And yeah, it's all grainy and cutting in and out. It was very charming. But the Trifecta, that's been a very long time since that was on, and definitely a must watch. Everybody watch your new stuff. So what has changed, do you think, over the past, let's say, decade? I don't know, maybe 15 years. Obama comes to power. I've been writing a little bit about, which hasn't come out yet, but about just how journalism in general has changed over the time and nobody's noticed this, but it's gotten a bit worse, I've noticed. But the whole blogging world, once Twitter hit, that changed everything, but you're still trucking.
Oh, and having a blast doing it. I think the important thing to remember is what I loved about the blogosphere in the early days, and I'll explain why we lost this, is that it was a level playing field. A blogger could go toe-to-toe with the New York Times or with CBS Evening News with Dan Rather, to name a particularly infamous example from 2004, and win. You could go toe-to-toe with this guys because level playing field. The rise of social media took that level playing field and replaced it with silos. And because the only thing social media sites really care about is what they call engagement, and that's keeping your eyeballs glued to whatever it is. TikTok is particularly good at this, but because you're in this silo, it's much, much more difficult for a single person, a blogger in their pajamas in their parents' basement or whatever the Dan Rather slur was, to go toe-to-toe with these guys, because once you're in that silo, they've got the power to squelch you. And that's one of the reasons I've been at PJ Media since it launched in 2005, is it's a bigger platform, and it's still part of that level playing field. We're not reliant
Mhm.
on Facebook or Twitter or TikTok or any of that. We can still do what we've always done, which is try to report and opine the best we can in ways that the mainstream media won't. At least that's the hope.
Yeah, well, I have tried to gather eyeballs, and yeah, I'll write articles that read like policy papers. Sometimes those don't work. So I'm now posting pictures of myself, bikini pictures of myself on the beach. I've actually lost followers since doing that, if you can believe it. So no accounting for taste on the internet.
You know, you should write one of those viral columns.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. I remember when virality was the big thing, and I would get pitches. I used to be in marketing. I'd get pitches from other marketers who were like, we can make you go viral. And then I look on Twitter, they have like 312 followers. I'm like, no, I don't. I don't think you can do that.
One of the great things about that, this is a story Bill Whittle told me years and years ago. I got to stop using that phrase. It makes me sound so old, but I do have a lot more gray hair than I did when we started all this. When Sony bought, I believe it was Columbia Pictures back in the early 90s, what they'd really bought was some real estate in Southern California, some warehouses, and a sheet of paper that said, hey, you make movies now. And so the Japanese executives come over from Sony, and they're meeting with the people at Columbia that they're now the bosses of, and they're like, "Okay, explain to us how this business works." And one of the Columbia Pictures people says, "Well, let's say we make 10 movies a year. 3 of those are going to break even, or excuse me, 3 of them are going to be flops. 4 of them are going to break even, and 3 of them are going to be big hits." And one of the Sony guys says, well, why don't you just make the hits?
That's
Well,
perfect.
Not the way it works.
Exactly. Exactly. That's great. Now, first off, everybody follow VodkaPundit on Twitter. But one thing, brand synergy, as we call it in marketing speak, every once in a while you're posting cocktails, and they are excellent. I have tried several of them, and yeah, so follow. If not for the commentary, then the sweet drinks.
The occasional cocktail. Have you tried the Gavilan yet?
Yes, and it was excellent. I had never heard of that. I was like, man, that sounds good. And yeah, it's excellent, especially for summer, since I live in Hell, or yeah, we're actually down the street from Hell, I think, in Phoenix, because it's a little bit hotter here. But yeah, perfect for the summer.
So my wife and I fell in love with this. I think it's on Netflix. It's one of those food travel shows. It's a totally unique concept. It's called Somebody Feed Phil. And it stars Phil, whose last name I've just forgotten, but he was the creative guy, the showrunner behind Everybody Loves Raymond.
Ah, okay.
And he's just a genuinely sweet, nice guy. You know, forget the Tony Bourdain, snarky, sour, cynical thing. Phil just stares in wide-eyed wonder at everything, and he eats all the food and he tries all the drinks. And on one of the episodes, he goes to Mexico, and he asks the bartender, you know, what do you think I should have? And the bartender says, oh, this is the cocktail you need. And he makes him a Gavilan. And my wife and I are on the sofa going, well, what is this? It has tequila. We must try this. And we knew really nothing about Reposado tequila, which is the barrel aged stuff. It's got a little amber color to it. We drink margaritas. Well, I should say we drank margaritas typically 2 nights a week. Like, we got to try this new cocktail. So we get the Reposado, we get the grapefruit squeeze, we get the lime squeeze. I make the simple syrup, I make the cocktail. And since then, this was back in February, I think we discovered these things. Since then, I think I've made margaritas 2, maybe 3 nights total. And we're up to, between the 2 of us, and this is on top of our regular wine consumption the rest of the week, just shy of 1 bottle of Reposado every 2 weeks.
That's good. That's a ringing endorsement.
We love these things.
Yeah. Well, my eldest daughter has just turned drinking age a couple weeks ago. So yeah, we're going to be having those for dinner one time, because I love cooking Mexican food of all types. So that will be perfect.
Oh, that would be nice.
Once her younger sister is shipped off to college again in a couple weeks, we're going to get wasted. So on gavelons, but I need to show her the good stuff. I told her, I said, the best way to avoid binge drinking is buy expensive hooch, because then you have one drinks. If you're with friends, a second, and you're like, okay, I can't really afford to make another one of these suckers. So I'll quit there.
The one thing that I will never binge on, because I love it too much, and it's not that expensive, but it's still not an everyday thing. It's a Spanish brandy called Grand Duke de Alba that my father-in-law introduced me to this stuff the night we met. I'm meeting this guy. Melissa and I have been dating for a couple of months. He was retired Air Force F-16 pilot who was working for the Saudis. He spent the 90s running an Air Force base for them. Cause, they hire foreigners to do the actual work.
Right.
Down near the border with Yemen. And so he was only home for 2 weeks, twice a year while he was working for the Saudis. And so I've been dating Melissa for 2-3 months, and I've met her mom. I love Paula. We hit it off, and I've already decided I'm going to marry this girl. We've hardly been dating for more than 3 months. I'm going to ask her to marry me very soon. And so the night I meet my potential father-in-law, I think I've got a leg up on him, because he's sizing me up as the latest boyfriend. I'm sizing him up as potential father-in-law.
Right.
And he and I hit it off. We're having a great time. And after dinner, this is like the stand-up comedian getting invited onto the sofa with Johnny Carson at the end of his set. Dick asked me, would you like to try a Spanish brandy? And on the outside, I'm saying, ooh, I'd love to. Thank you.
Yeah.
And on the inside, I'm thinking, Spanish brandy, the French make the brandy. What the hell are you talking about? And he opens a bottle of this stuff. He pours a couple of generous snifters. I take one sip and I say, oh, screw the French.
This is worth keeping. There's one that I have yet to try because I don't have any rum in my abode, but I was reading about the great Admiral Chester Nimitz, who won the Pacific War for the United States Navy. And I was reading a biography, and every night he would have one cocktail. And it's basically, he called it the Commander-in-Chief. I think that's it. Or the Sink Pack, something like that, because somebody made him name it. But it's basically an old-fashioned with 2 jiggers of rum slopped on top of it. And I went, all right, well, if it was good enough to win World War II, I'm going to check this out. So I need to find the specific recipe and check that out.
Yeah, please share that with me. I'm a World War II buff, especially the Pacific Campaign. And in fact, I just finished reading the 3rd and final book in Ian Toll's Pacific War history.
Oh, nice.
Amazing book. So the 3rd one, wow, if you thought the first 2 were detailed, that got in there. But you know what he didn't share? Nimitz's recipe.
Son of a...
So when you find that, please do share it.
Yes, I will. As soon as this interview is done. Well, we are paid our multi-million-dollar salaries for discussing the news of the day. What do you think about the primary field shaping up? It's been very static, and people for the past several months have said, no matter who you're rooting for, it's all over. It's all over. And I'm like, okay, this time in 2015, Jeb was in the lead. So it's like nobody's voted yet. There's all sorts of stuff yet to happen. There's always going to be twists and turns and secret recordings and who knows what. Do you think everybody's oddly quick to say this is all over? Because being through many political cycles, it's like, no, it hasn't even started yet. Everything can change on a dime without us knowing it.
Yeah, and anybody who says they know anything about this is either lying or foolish. I mean, it certainly looks like Trump has it locked up. And DeSantis, I love what a great job he's done as governor of Florida. But these first couple of months of his presidential campaign are giving me and I'm not saying it's over anything, but I have been getting that sort of Scott Walker vibe. Scott was such a great conservative governor of Wisconsin, and not just in terms of implementing conservative policies, but in finding ways of going after the left's power structure and squeezing it, really putting the hurt on them. And I always thought that, in fact, I wrote and said this many, many times in 2016, once Trump got the nomination, that Trump should appoint Scott Walker his White House czar for squeezing the left by the balls until it hurts. And I'm not kidding when I say this. If Trump had had somebody in his inner circle with that kind of authority and Scott Walker's discipline, I think he'd be serving his second term right now.
Yeah, I agree. And there's something, it actually reduces their power. Our governor here, Doug Ducey, 2-term governor, and by the time he had left, he had basically totally separated education dollars from going straight to the districts and the unions and things like that, and just directed it straight to the students. And I've tried to explain to conservatives, you don't know how much damage that has done. Check it out in 10 years, because it's going to be a radically different landscape. Is just, he kept increasing the education budgets, and a lot of conservatives be upset about it, but it never went to the district buildings. It never went to the bureaucrats. It went to the classroom, to the students, to the parents. And it's like, just things like that, where you could just apply pressure at the right pain points. Yeah, it can be very effective.
You know what you just reminded me of? I thought this was fascinating. Two of the things we keep spending more and more money on and getting not so good results on are healthcare and education. And I saw a chart of doctors per 1,000 people. And it's, since 1900 or 1950, whatever the year was, but stretching back quite a ways. And it was this line, basically flat, just little variations, and it was always about the same number of doctors per 1,000 of Americans who exist. But what exploded starting in about 1960, I mean, just boom, up the chart, was the number of administrators.
Yeah,
there's your expense right there. And it's the exact same thing in education. If you look at the number of teachers per student, it's a little line that wiggles right around the bottom of the chart, and the administrators swoop right up. Yeah. And you see that's why college costs so much. Yeah, the administrators keep getting hired. Especially in California, I've had the pleasure to attend a couple conferences in the summer at USC or UCLA or something like that. The food, oh my gosh, it was incredible. And they were like, oh yeah, here's a meal ticket. You can get whatever you want. So I'm all you can eat breakfasting 3 times a day, essentially. And I was like, wow, I guess all the out-of-state parents are paying for this, because I'm glad I'm not. It's just crazy. When I was at the University of Missouri, Columbia, Mizzou, back in the late 80s, the cafeteria was okay. It was cheap, was the best thing you could possibly say about it. And it wasn't expensive. If you were working part-time and going to school full-time, you could afford to eat at the cafeteria, and that was great. But just pay up front, you're set. And the rooms were a stunning combination of linoleum and painted cinder blocks. Yeah. Just not homey at all. It was a place where you wanted to get out of here in 4 years, 3 if you could. And you wanted to spend as little money as you could. And it was possible not to spend a whole lot of money, because those were the amenities. And you go to a university now and it looks like a resort. I know. Arizona State, we don't live too far from there. My alma mater, Stanford of the West, as I like to call it. But #1 Playboy party school, at least when I attended. So I did my part as a student. Nice. But every time you drive by it, there's 3 new buildings. It's all by Daniel Liebeskind or Calatrava. I'm like, where is this money coming from? Nothing looks like the building next door to it, of course. But they're just like building furiously, constantly. So that money is coming from somewhere, and it is not going to the classroom. Yeah, the $1 trillion in the student debt that Biden keeps trying to forgive. It's these kids, and when I say idiot kids, I just mean they're young and inexperienced. Yeah. But these idiot kids take on loans worth a house for a degree that isn't worth nearly that. Right. And it's paying for those buildings and that great food. But the great food ends when you graduate. Now you got to buy your own. Right. Yeah. And it's funny, being a man of a certain age, get together with the boys. We've known each other forever. Oh, my kid's going to college. Great. What are they majoring in? And everybody starts looking down. Medievalism. Oh, great.
How much are you paying for that? French poetry. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, our kids are not big into STEM, unfortunately. Now, how about the Biden administration? I can barely keep up with the news going on with all these scandals, the Biden family corruption. Thankfully, the news changed. Biden got a huge victory by walking around topless, showing his physique off on the beautiful beaches of Delaware. Yeah, I looked at that and I'm like, I can't criticize him because we're all getting there eventually.
Oh,
And
yeah.
shockingly, yeah, as my bikini photos on Instagram proved, I don't quite have it anymore. But it was weird to see Democrats celebrate it as like, what a hunk.
I couldn't. I actually got a funny column out of it on Monday after that photo went viral on Twitter Sunday night, Monday morning. I did not make fun of Joe Biden. He's an 80-year-old guy. He's in good shape for 80 years old. But for 80 years old, let's the fact that the press and the Dem bots or whatever you want to call them on Twitter have to fawn over this steaming hunk on the beach. No, he looks good for an 80-year-old guy. That's as much as you need to say. The rest of it's really gross.
Yeah, I saw one guy, you might have mentioned him in your column, Harry Sisson, I guess it's pronounced. He's I don't know, a Zoomer who's famous for screaming at the camera about things he has no idea what he's talking about, but he's like, man, Joe Biden is so cool. Check him out. I'm like, he looks like the drunk soundboard guy at a Dave Matthews show in 96. I'm like, what? That's cool? Okay.
Oh, yeah, Biden. Sisson was praising Biden for his backwards baseball cap and his Ray-Bans and his board shorts. And all I could think was, no, he doesn't look cool. He looked like guys who are now our age. He looks like that's what we were wearing in the mid 90s when we were trying to look cool and utterly failing at it.
Right. Yeah, the only change would be the underbill of my baseball cap would be day glow. But I think other than that, it is perfectly. I thought I was ready for the spring break, MTV spring break show. But yeah, Joe Biden, extra cool. So what do you think will happen with all these various scandals going on? Do you have any read on it? Because I, of course, don't trust the DOJ or anyone to fully prosecute this or anything. But it seems like a lot of the legacy media is having a tough time avoiding it. They're basically doing spin for the administration now. It's like everybody knew that Joe Biden's talking to all these oligarchs across the world with Hunter. But boy, it was just the illusion of access. So just the fact that the press has been dragged kicking and screaming to that point is something, I guess.
Yeah, I wish I could remember who posted this. I saw this on Twitter just a couple of hours ago. They said the best case scenario, and this is kind of what the press is spinning, is that Hunter Biden was committing fraud when he said he could deliver Joe Biden on these schemes.
Because the sterling character of Joe Biden is not to be questioned. I think watching him in public life, nothing has been proven more than ethics.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, Joe Biden's presence on the phone is all that's needed. They don't have to outline their sinister plans because Hunter is selling access. He's saying, I can deliver the big guy to Burisma. I can deliver the big guy to Moscow, which, by the way, I love the fact that Biden was playing Kiev now and Moscow. He doesn't give a damn where the money comes from as long as the check clears. So Hunter is out there selling access. And when he says, hey, let me put my dad on the phone, what he's saying is I can deliver. And when Joe gets on the phone and says, hey, how you doing? Great. How's the weather? Whatever it was he was saying, Joe Biden is saying, yes, I am here. And whatever the backroom deal is, I can put it together. You've heard my voice on the phone. We know how this works.
Yeah, exactly. And I really need to get into, too, the whole Trump impeachment of him talking to Zelensky and, asking about the Biden organization, because now it's feeling like a lot of butt covering by the left, knowing that Biden was actually, I don't know, that was a sensitive spot for him. So let's pin it on Trump instead.
Yeah. I mean, the most succinct you can put that is Donald Trump was impeached for doing the things that Biden did,
Right.
actually did.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as we know, is still doing. I think Obama was the most dangerous guy ever to occupy the Oval Office simply because he was so good at appearing not radical while he was committing
Right.
radical damage to the rule of law in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And Biden is the guy who was enabled by all of that to get very, very rich.
Yeah.
Off of access. That's as corrupt as it gets.
Yeah, completely. And it's pretty obvious what was going on behind the scenes, what he was doing with this. What do you think about, I guess, the state of the GOP? And I'm asking this, I guess, a broader perspective, because, yeah, despite the Grim Reaper who appears over my shoulder now, please watch on YouTube. Gosh, our politicians are old. We had the situation where Mitch McConnell kind of froze up, kind of a, what do they call that, arrhythmic seizure or something like that, where he just kind of froze up for a bit and he had to be walked off. Dianne Feinstein, she has looked a bit more spry in the past. Joe Biden, Donald Trump, you have new candidates coming into it. Oh, gosh, there's some new guy. I cannot recall his name. I never heard of him. But he's some businessman from Michigan who's running for president, who's about 80. Okay, can we finally get, I know I'm a simp for the Gen X, my generation, but man, can we get a couple people who are a little bit younger in there?
Yeah, please. And Gen X, we're not that old, not yet. I'm 54, which is that's about when you expect. I mean, that's about the age George W. Bush was when he was elected president. And he was considered maybe on the young side, but basically age appropriate for the job. He wasn't Kennedy coming in the job at 39 or 40. But that was about Carter's age, I think, mid late 50s, maybe 60.
Yeah, I'm 56, so yeah, right around
there. And it's not so much, I think, that Gen X isn't stepping up. It's that these aged kleptocrats won't let go. They just absolutely, they've got these gnarled hands that just have a vice grip on the nation. And, God willing, we'll all live that long.
Right.
But also, God willing, we'll know when to let go. I've already told my sons, and they're still pretty young. I've got a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old. I've given them pre-permission to give me the talk when it's time for me to stop driving my own car.
Right.
I've warned that, I'm going to be crabby. I'm going to deny it. I won't take it well, but you got to stand firm when the time comes to have the talk.
Yeah.
We're going to have the talk with some people in DC.
And I think, too, going back to 80s and 90s, we had some old birds in office, but these are people who fought in World War II, or they kind of maintained or created the world, the post-war world. These are people of accomplishments, love them or hate them, love their policies, hate their policies, but they had a little gravitas. And now it's just kind of these people who, how did you get here? How are you ruling me? I don't quite understand.
Well, you're a retired Navy guy, right? The Navy is a great example of what we've squandered. We came out of World War II, as we should always be, the predominant naval power in the whole world. We're a maritime trading nation. We should always have the best, strongest, biggest Navy that anybody ever saw. End of story. I believe this my entire adult life. And we inherited so much from World War II. And those men, as you say, with that gravitas, understood the importance, and they maintained that Navy. And it had gotten a little too small for Reagan's taste, and he said, I'm going to have a 600 ship Navy. And if I remember correctly, we fell short by maybe 4 ships.
Yeah, it was very close, I remember.
Yes. And among those were modernized Iowa-class battleships. God bless those hulls. But not to nerd out completely, but now we can't even get 300 ships out there.
Yeah.
And we have so many more people. We have so much more wealth. but we can't recruit enough people and we can't build enough ships to have a Navy half as big as the one Reagan left us, which was really built on the momentum left over from World War II.
Yeah. And this current class is less interested in what kind of ships we're building and more about, well, where are they going to be built? Because that's all I care about. Can these radar components come from my district in Louisiana? Yeah. That's the kind of thing that they care about. And boy, I hope we don't get a rude wake-up call, but we're going to need one, because some of the newer designs too are basically graft machines. They tried the Seawolf submarine, which I was familiar with. It could do everything all at once, and as it turned out, it couldn't do anything very well because it was just
so
into
big.
Cost overruns. Oh yeah, it's just crazy.
Massive.
And the Zumwalt and all these like high-tech things. It's like, look, you just need some boats who can float into, you know, there's a coup going on in Niger right now. There's something blowing up in Djibouti. You just want some normal little ships to patrol the seas a little bit and make sure they know who's boss.
A little presence. And I mean, piracy is a problem again. Between the Royal Navy and the U.S. Navy, we'd beaten piracy.
Yeah.
And
yeah, completely.
Now it's back. And some of it's state-sponsored like Iran, and some of it's guys who are just stealing ships because they know they can get away with it.
Right, exactly. And nobody's going to really get in their way. Stephen Green, where can people find your fine work? We'll include links in the show notes, of course.
Oh, well, the easiest thing to do is just go to VodkaPundit.com, which is an aged URL, but it will redirect you to my actual page, which is at PJ Media, and I've got fresh material up every day. And you can sometimes find me on Twitter. I'm not as active as I used to be, but VodkaPundit at Twitter, of course. Or, excuse me, at X.
I'm never getting used to this.
For a guy who's built a lot of great, well, at least 2 great companies. I'm not an electric vehicle guy, but you got to give Tesla respect. And SpaceX, which I think, no exaggeration, might be the future of humanity. Boy, Elon Musk is screwing the pooch on Twitter.
Yeah, there's a new fail every day. We will see if he can somehow pull it out. But yeah, farewell, Twitter. Long live X. Thanks very much for being on. Really appreciate it.
Oh, love being here, John. Thanks for having me on. Let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely. I'd love to. Thanks.
Thank
you. Ricochet. Join the conversation.